Welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders Airsoft podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. My guests today are Nick and Alex. They're co-founders of Zone 37, an airsoft live-action role-playing event in California, USA. For those of you who've listened to the show before, we've had Matt from our Discord on the podcast in the past to talk about his experience before and then during Zone 37. But I'm thrilled to welcome two of the co-founders to talk about the event itself in a bit of a broader context. We always think it's really helpful for people to understand how these events come about, especially if you live in an area where you don't have access to these kinds of events, so that maybe you can do that yourself. So both Nick and Alex, along with a few of their friends, started Zone 37 actually in 2025 after about like 10 to 15 years of playing Airsoft and looking for something a little bit different. And if you've listened to the podcast with Matt, you know that Zone 37 sort of fits that bill, offering players a highly developed, fleshed out space to experience airsoft, role play, survival, and also just weird stuff, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So, guys, thank you so much for being on. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thank you
much.
so much. Matt raves about you guys. You guys do a lot of good for the airsoft community. You really put the word out there for a lot of different things. So we really appreciate the
Well,
work you
we
guys do.
we pay him well. So
I have no
actually,
doubt about that.
yeah, I guess where I'd like to start off before we dive too far into Zone 37 itself, I want to quickly talk about what Airsoft has been like for you before Zone 37. Like, what were you into? Like, what events were you attending? Like, what was that like?
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, well, I would say like I did everything, probably like all kind of events that exist at that time. But most of them was just, Sunday and Saturday games and sometimes kind of meal sim style force on force events. That was my most kind of like the biggest part of my experience. Uh, and then it's got really boring after
Right.
some time. It's just getting boring and boring more and more and more every time. And then you just start looking for something longer, something bigger, something more challenging for you as a player because you just tired from like spray and pray behavior and at the CQB fields and stuff like that. Okay, so yeah, that was my experience before.
Yeah.
Nick?
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience. Growing up in the Bay Area, we're not blessed with a lot of fields. Like
Mhm.
now we are, like, there's a few different fields out there now, but when I was growing up, it was just like CQB City was one of the older ones, and then GamePod came around, and then a few other ones started. Um, but I had the same situation. It was just the Saturday, Sunday grind of like doing the same thing, standing in the same lines, paying the same fees, having the same experiences, but just talking about them in different ways, right? Um,
And so, like, at what point did you guys start thinking, hey, wait a minute, like, we could be doing our own thing or we could be the change that we want to see in Airsoft?
That's a very good question, actually, because like the story is kind of big. The idea to do something like this has been in my head for a long time, like really long time. Like a lot of airsoft players, I really love video games, right?
Mhm.
And I've always been into games like Fallout, Stalker, Metro, and things like that, right? And also, I'm kind of, if you did not notice yet, I'm originally from Russia, and that's where I first got into airsoft,
Mhm.
not in the US. And airsoft there is very different from how it's done here. For example, in Russia, Stalker is super, like tremendously popular franchise, and there are many airsoft events based on that universe. People really put a lot of efforts into costumes, into game quests, props, and the whole vibe.
Mhm.
That's nobody probably literally doing something even similar here. Um, and because of that, at some point, I really kind of wanted to start making my own events here, bringing those experience here and show people how it could be done different in a different way. Events people would always want to come back to. Events that feels different every time with continuous story and deep role play, not just simple force on force, as I said. That's how the idea of the Zone 37 was born.
And so, obviously, Zone 37 did not come out fully formed and baked just the way that it is today. What was sort of the process for you to start thinking, okay, from the moment you're like, you know what, I'm going to try and do this? How, like, what was your first step, I guess, that you took?
The first step was the manifesto, our rule set. That's actually what I started like myself almost like a couple years ago.
Mhm.
And I just started writing down this rule set. I
Yeah.
started thinking about all mechanics, potential game mechanics that we could use. I started gathering like ideas from different fields, from different event providers. Look at what works, what not. You know, like gather like this chow limits rules, etc., etc. All this basic stuff for sure, and also the game mechanics. Like I know can a few people from Russia who do something like really really impressive. We are not there yet, and maybe we won't ever will be there because they're kind of different stuff, but they have a lot of interesting ideas that I got from them. Like we all stealing in some
Yeah,
form,
yeah,
right?
100%.
Uh,
Yeah.
as a as a good kind of designer or art people, like they always stealing something from others and just create something new. That's
I
what
wouldn't
we
call
did.
it so much
That's what we
stealing.
did.
It's, like
I mean, like
we're
like
cultivating.
the
Like
conception, the idea. I'm not saying like we stealing something like specific, yeah, but the general idea was like how we can bring something like video game experience into the real life, and we took like multiple different games and combine their ideas, combine their mechanics into what we're doing right now.
And
That's
so, how
how.
did,
But the
yeah,
first
yeah.
step, as I said, that was a rule set.
Mhm. And how did you test with your community or with the group of players that you're with? How did you test whether there would be interest in doing something like that? What made you think it's like, okay, so we've got this rule set, people are going to want to do this? Like, what were your early experiments with that like? How did you sort of trial it to see sort of what would
So
work and what would appeal?
yeah, there are no ways to like test it except organize the event,
yeah.
play with people, see what they do, and also talk to your community, talk to your community that you're forming around this idea, how they react on the rule set, what questions they ask, what's clear, what's not for them from this rule set. That's how you evaluate your ideas.
Yeah, because and the reason I asked this question is because for many people, it's like, well, I have this idea, but I don't know if people are going to like it. So I don't know if I want to do it. Right. And so in some cases, they're like, well, I have to try and figure out a way to test to see if people will respond to it. And that's fine. But I guess where I'm going with this is that
Yeah,
actually, if
worth.
you know what you want to do, you should just go ahead and do it. Right.
Yeah, that's worth to mention that my I'm a professional designer, and the user research, that's what I do all the time at my job. And so I know how to kind of in general like how to evaluate some stuff and like doing this user research before I put some game mechanic into the rule set. And also we always ask one very important question: can player cheat on this specific rule somehow? Because they will cheat.
Hmm.
Everybody will cheat if you will let them do it, or if your mechanic or the rule kind of leaving this room in some form, they will
Hmm.
use this room to cheat.
Yeah,
That's
you
how we
definitely
kind of evaluate our rules
you
all
have
the
to
time.
think.
And the
Yeah,
balance, obviously, that's everything about the balance,
Yeah.
balancing the factions.
every mechanic we put in place, we have to like talk about it, right? And like vet it thoroughly before we're like, how does in what ways does this mechanic affect this? And like, if it does affect this mechanic, is it a bad thing that it affects that mechanic? Like, it's everything is talked about. We have like so many admin meetings, like just getting dialogue from players, like spinning it back into our conversations. Like, how can we make this a better experience? How can we make the game mechanics easier or make more sense? Like,
Yeah.
like that's always a heavy construct for us, is like the what, where, when, why. Like, it's not just like go here and shoot this person. It's like, why? Like, what do
Yeah.
they do? Like, it's deeper than that, right?
Yeah, and it's a difficult balance of, on the one hand, you want to create a rule set about a game, and on the other one, you want to create the world in which those rules get applied, and they have to be coherent. Like they have to work together.
Exactly.
Otherwise, to your point, like you're not creating. Well, you can create an environment where people can cheat, but also I would probably submit, and I think you will probably agree with this. The more players are immersed in the world that they're in, the less likely they are to want to cheat because of their mindset now with respect to the environment that they're in. If you break that immersion for them, it's like, well, it's just a rule. I can just bypass it. Whereas if I'm worried about this guy being really angry at me for doing something, I'm probably not going to do that thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And there's
How
always
did
lots,
that's
there's
Yeah,
always
go
the
lots
ahead.
of strong
balance between
chances for
that.
that to happen too. Like we have 5 different factions operating all at the same time, so it can get a little hairy. It did get a little hairy during chapter 1, but like, in a good way.
Mhm.
Things happened that we didn't expect to happen, and like that's kind of the direction that we kind of wanted to go. So
Can you talk a little bit, without any like spoilers or anything like that, but a little bit about sort of what exactly is the world of Zone 37? Like, what is it about? You mentioned like the different factions. Like, can you just at a really high level, like a synopsis of what we're dealing with?
yeah, so
It's
I'll let
pretty
Alex.
massive.
Alex, so Alex kind of created the backstory for Zone 37, and then I took that and I went crazy with it. Like I wrote the chronicles, based on player experiences and like feedback and stuff. So that's like, those are short stories that you can go back through and like figure out not just like not just different players' experiences, but what actually happened during the event, in one way or another.
Mhm.
Kind of like a short story, or like looking back. Um, but yeah, I'll let Alex tell you the backstory.
Well, yeah, we don't have that much time to talk about the entire story behind like the entire
It's a
world,
lot.
because most of these parts will be revealed like step by step in every chapter, so we cannot like expose the full picture we have in
Sure.
our mind. But um, if we just talking like high level about this world, this is a persistent world, and there are multiple factions exist, like military faction like PMCs, government faction like UGF, and civilians. That's also the big faction, and one like another faction like the developer, like a zone faction, like this
Mhm.
antagonists. Somebody could say that, but so yeah, persistent world. These multiple factions and dozens of different quests and stories around all of them. All these factions kind of follow their own orders, their own goals. They are different goals. There's no kind of things like winning or defeating someone because they just have to defeat one faction, have to defeat another faction. That's not about that. Because during one event, they could like maybe form alliances between two factions. Next event, they won't be in an alliance for some
Mhm.
reason. Who knows, right? That's all living world. Plus, uh, on top of that, this world has a lot of props and NPCs.
A
These
lot of props.
NPCs giving you quests, trading with you looting all these props, etc. If it's lootable, etc. You completing quests, you looking for some props per quest, like quest items. Uh, all these layers adding this kind of deep immersion feeling, right? And on top of all of this, we also have an economy system, because our goal is to let player literally not play this game, not play this event, but live in this 40 hours world during the weekend, becoming there to live their character life, not just play as a player against one faction against another faction,
So
right? And
how do you welcome a new player into this room? I'm just curious because like if I'm a normal airsofter and I'm interested in, video games and stalker or stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, this seems like this would be very cool to play. But I don't have any experience with role playing or even action role playing certainly, but like in role playing in general. How do you welcome a new player into this world, into this space, and give them the information that they need to
so
understand sort of what they're supposed to do?
we have a website and the pretty self-explained manifesto document. Once you read it carefully and in full, you will already kind of understand what's going on in the zone, what kind of relationships formed there, et cetera. And you don't really have to have any experience, like past experience, before playing our event. Even during our chapter 1, we had like multiple people who played Airsoft for the first time, played Airsoft for the first time.
There was actually one of the players played the entire event and didn't fire a single shot out of his gun.
That also was a case.
Yeah.
I believe
So
it. Yeah.
And is also currently one of the richest players in the zone. I could also say that. So he did all that without firing a single bullet. So
and if you really want to like make some connections and friends before the event, you can join our Discord server and talk to people, right? That's simple. So you don't, you don't have to have any experience, like past experience, to come to our events.
And like one of the things that you've mentioned a few times, and I love this idea of like we're not giving you the full picture. Just full stop. You're not getting it. You're gonna get it over time as you develop, as you experience it, right?
like we don't have the full picture, right? So like we as event coordinators, like just based on how we set up this event to evolve, is that we're relying on the players to give us the next, to paint the picture for us, right? And then all we can do is kind of like make that picture, cohesive.
I would say we
that's
have
fair
a
point.
baseline, and everything what's going on during our events, we just adapt to the event result in our storytelling.
Yeah, we do have to adapt very quickly.
That's how this world forms, and that's how this story develops.
So it's really interesting in that case because it reminds me a lot of like when I was younger, like playing like Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, or trying to come up with my own campaign, and I have an idea of what's going to happen, but then my players have agency; they get to determine what they want to do, and if that is not what I want them to do or I had in my mind, well, I now need to adapt to that. Other, I can't just be like, no, you can't do that, right? And so similarly for you, it sounds like you're creating a system whereby you're saying to players, hey, this is the framework, this is the rule set, this is the environment, these are your faction goals or what have you. But what you decide to do ultimately is up to you, which is really positive for them, but also creates potentially some snarls for you as the organizer, right? But on the flip side, also creates then an uncertainty from the players because they don't know what's going on. Because, like you said, Nick, you also don't necessarily know what's going to happen next either, right?
Yeah, like Alex said, we kind of have, like, as both of you said, we kind of have framework, but like we don't have a picture to put in that frame yet. So like every event, we're getting little bits, and like also players have came to us with ideas. How that's how certain things are formed is, players will come up to us during an event and be like, "Hey, can I do this?" And we think about it and we're like, it doesn't really affect anything negatively, and we don't see any issue why, it shouldn't be a thing. So yeah, go ahead and do it. And now it's like one of the things we implemented like mid event during chapter 1 is like a really popular thing now, that people are looking forward to in the
And
event.
again, like as you remember, we have 5 factions, and every faction has its own main objective every chapter, right?
Mhm.
And the next chapter story will depend on what faction actually reach their main objective at the end of the game. Or nobody will reach any objectives. That's also,
Yeah, and
you
it'll just
know,
prolong, right?
that's
Um,
also an index. That will
Mhm.
affect on the next chapter as well.
What what is the difference, I guess, without like again, no spoilers or whatever, but like what is the difference between like just coming back to it, I'm going to restart my what I'm saying. In a
Yeah.
lot of events, you have different factions, right? Like you go to American Milsim and you're playing Cost versus UFS or whatever, right? What is the difference between the factions at your events? Is it like camo? Is it like because it's role playing? Is it ideology or like I think about like alignments a lot, like in the context of Dungeons and Dragons, like chaotic good versus lawful good or lawful evil? Like, is that part of that, like the ethos of the group, also a
I
factor?
I would say that it's more so there's like what you said earlier about agency, like players having agency. There's levels of agency within each like
Okay,
faction, and then within each kind of like if you're attached to a military faction, Rubicon or Titans, there's you have a little less agency, right? You kind of have people to report to, places to be. You're playing the bigger game at that point. But if you are a civilian, you are kind of at the will of anybody else on the team, or sorry, anybody else on the field. You can kind of do whatever you want,
interesting.
within the parameters of the game. So there's levels of agency, but generally anybody can kind of like do whatever they want as long as it adheres to the game rules, right?
So it sounds like that paramilitary faction is more like a typical milsim structure. Certainly not experience, but structure compared to some of your like civilian
Yeah,
factions or whatever.
yeah. I would say lightly structured. Yeah.
Do you like have like a cadre or people that you select to command those teams, or do people self-select? Like how does all that work out?
We do. So we usually we send out rosters, like the week before, letting people know what teams they're on, if they want to, if changes need to be made. But all of the commanders for each of the factions are admin members, so it's one of us. So, for
Okay,
instance, I'm the UGF commander, so I can kind of like keep track of of UGF while they're doing their thing. Alex is also an NPC in the game, but he runs the Velmore. And then we have a few different admin, but they are all in control of their respective factions. And then
gotcha.
it's important for us to remain in communication during the events, because in an event like this, like you got five different people doing, or five different groups of people doing five different things. You have to be able to communicate and um, keep that flow of the game going.
Yeah, every faction has its own level of freedom and slightly different gameplay for the player. For example, if you want to have like the maximum freedom, you can go for civilians, but it has like pros and cons. You will be
There's
free.
caveats. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want, but you are alone. Literally, everybody against you. Even your own faction could be against you, depending on
Mhm.
your character role play. If you are like bastard, you know, everybody will be against you,
Right.
and you have to live with this somehow. If you want a more structured gameplay, you can go for the PMC or UGF.
And do you work with players, especially like newer players, to encourage them in a particular direction? Like again, like let's say I'm a brand new player, never done anything like this. Would you encourage them to go for a faction that's a bit more structured, or how hands on are you, I guess, with your player base in that respect?
You can literally go for any faction in that case. That's more about like how much money you really gonna spend right now,
That's like player expectation.
because you
Hmm.
have to purchase your camo, you have to purchase your gear, etc., etc. It's money, right?
Gotcha.
You can purchase less if you'll go for civilians, obviously.
Yeah, you can
But
show up with the clothes on your
it
back. Yeah.
it doesn't really matter which faction you will go as a new.
So you have this world where you have these factions or not. right? You're by yourself, and you have like obviously you have different objectives that are like missions and stuff. What do you do? Like what is your motivation in general? So if I'm a player and I'm coming to this event, if I'm paramilitary, probably I get orders, so that's one thing. But let's say I don't, like what am I trying to accomplish and how do I go about doing that exactly?
Develop your character,
Yeah,
grow,
it's how
survive.
deep you want to be, right? How deep
Yeah,
yourself in this world that we've created. How much do you want to be a part of it? How much do you want to make like a mark? You know, like multiple players at the first event have their like normal everyday like people in our stories now. Um,
Mm,
I don't want to name drop anybody, but yeah, there's like multiple peoples who are like basically famous at the zone now. And we've only had one event, which is crazy. Our Discord is very informative. Both of us are very active on there, which is kind of unheard of as far as like event coordinating goes. Like, you wouldn't be able to just reach out to the owners of an event coordinating company and ask them whatever you want at any time. And
right.
you can do that with us. You can ask us whatever you want. There's no stupid questions, right?
that's actually that's okay. Actually, a very good question was from you, Phil. Because that's the difference between role playing and the force on force events. Um, because here your actions matter as a player. You really influence on the outcome. And if you keep this thought in your mind, you can imagine like how exactly you want to be in the zone, how you want to act in the zone, and what to do to impact as much as you can on the outcome,
Yeah.
right? The rest is just your imagination.
Yeah. And you mentioned like community and sort of like like the players sort of the player base, I guess. How have the players coming back to my D&D analogy as a DM, players will always find a way to like mess everything up for you and surprise you in different ways. How have your players surprised you in like this first iteration and sort of leading up and since the event? What have you found with them?
Uh, I mean, a variety of things, right? Like we've seen people that are by the book that have read our manifesto religiously and able to provide answers on the Discord and to other people before we are even able to get to it, like providing them accurate answers about things regarding like the manifesto that we wrote. So like we can see how deep it's getting. Um, I started talking about that and then I completely forgot that first part of that question. I'm going to go
Like,
back.
did you notice so did you have players who sort of went the other way, who are like sort of at a loss as to what to do and how to engage with the world that you created for them? And what did you do in that case?
Yeah, we had players that are kind of across the board, right? Players that live in the gray area, so like to uh find out things that we don't really have rules about and kind of exploit those. So that gave us a chance to go in and kind of like fix those, which was kind of necessary, right? Like I know
Mhm.
it sucks when stuff like that happens, but in order to fix that kind of thing, you need it to happen to be able to identify it. So we were able to
Yeah.
fix a few things, but yeah, like new players, experienced players, they don't really need a lot in the zone, right? Other than knowing what the manifesto says and kind of like going by the book, they're given kind of full autonomy.
Yeah, and I would add that uh, everything what happened like last event, it gave us the chance to be better in our manifesto. We drastically improved this rule set after the first event, and I'm pretty sure we will keep improving it. Maybe every chapter, I don't know, we'll see. Um, but we also kind of very strict on punishments. Like if you violating our rule, we will ban you permanently. Every player has an ID in our database. You will never ever be able to participate in any of our events in the future because we
Mhm.
know you now. You just won't be able to purchase our ticket. That's how
Right.
far we going to with cheating and other stuff. Because I know that's the pain of airsoft, right? Cheaters and everything what's happened at every freaking event, and
Yeah.
nobody can do anything with that because in the world we do not have any kind of central database of players or something like that to
Mhm.
track these cheaters, right? So at least in our events, we try to do something like that to eliminate that problem and let other people play and experience full immersion without that kind of bad guys that could come to every event in the world. Like we
We
cannot
luckily
stop
didn't
that.
really have too many like rules being broken at the first event. It was like a few things, but it was like mostly our fault. It wasn't specified enough
Sure.
to the point where they knew it was against the rules. So again, like Alex said, we made like some pretty good amendments to the rules. But other than that, we just learned a lot from what players want, what they expect, especially from an event company, and just kind of what works and what doesn't.
It's interesting too because you create a world where like some behavior that would be not cheating with respect to your rule set absolutely feels like cheating because you're like betraying someone or like something that is like that does not feel like I have my
Oh yeah.
buddy and my buddy shot me and just looted all my stuff and there's nothing that says they can't do that. Sucks to
Yep.
suck, but for me as a player it's like okay, damn, like managing that I think is a very interesting as a interesting
It's
problem, right?
player expectation. You have
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
I don't play airsoft to be a badass, right? Like I don't play airsoft because I want to go out on the field and kill everybody and, that's not my thing. I'm there to have an experience, and dying and calling my hit and being a part of something bigger than me is a part of that. That's like the biggest
absolutely.
part of it, right?
Yeah,
It's just you're a part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah,
yeah, I,
that's why it's not only about your skills as airsoft players, it's also involving your diplomacy and communication skills.
Hearts and minds, using like what's available to you in the best, most efficient
Yeah,
ways.
because
Yeah.
the zone is dangerous, right? And you should expect that. If you do not expect that, you just freaking idiot, right? Roaming around the zone and think that everybody will be kind to you. No, man, that's not true. That's not what
You
the
will meet
zone
nice
is, you
people.
know?
You will meet nice people, but not all the
You
time.
will, but you have to involve your communication and diplomacy and trading skills to read people, not only shoot people.
Yeah.
yeah,
To talk,
yeah,
to make friends, to make deals, etc. That's how you
Yeah.
leave the zone. And again, this is a role play. This is exact why it's role playing, not just shooting people.
so how do you tackle that? Because it's one thing to say this is the world that we're creating. And it's another thing to actually bring that to life for the player in the way that they actually feel immersed. Because you're talking about, having an interaction with someone and you need to think about, is this person lying to me? Why would they be lying to me? Like, why would they be wanting to be? Why are they being nice to me? Like all this kind of stuff.
Yes, that's
And
true.
so it's easy to think about that in a vacuum. And if I'm thinking about like if I'm at work, for example, and I'm having a conversation with someone I don't know, it's very easy for me to think about, okay, well, okay, what are they doing? But when you're at play now in an environment that is quote unquote artificial, that reaction that I have as a human doesn't necessarily switch on in the same way, right? And so a big part of that is how do you create that immersion for the player so that they do automatically start thinking that way, right? Automatically think, oh yes, the zone is dangerous, not, oh well, it's airsoft, right? How do
Well,
you create that world?
that's all. That's all about experience because in airsoft we are not really dying, right? We just go and respawn, and that's how you gain your own experience during the event. If somebody shot you, you went to the respawn. Now you know this person, know what he's doing. Just remember that, right? And another thing is we build the system that way that you cannot really lose everything during the event, like just lose everything, money, BBs, X, everything.
Yeah,
You cannot really lose everything. So it's never will never happen. You always can kind of
pick it back up.
play back, everything you lost last time when you died.
I guess the point of my question was more, as an organizer, how do you make this feel real for your players? Right? That's where I'm
Through
going with that.
Yeah, well, there are multiple things. We're trying to create the atmosphere through NPCs, through props, through general communication with all these NPCs and faction leaders and
Yeah, volunteers.
music and this time we will have the central radio station that will play the music, that will broadcast news and a lot of other things, creating this vibe. And when you
Mhm.
will be in it, you will feel it almost right away. That's you are in the zone. And also, big chunk of our players actually, they doing it by themselves for us. We
Really?
have a lot of
We
people
do.
who really kind of into it. They really want to play their character, and most of like a lot of them playing really nice actually,
Yeah, it'd be great.
because you cannot really create the atmosphere as a event provider if just players don't get it. If they don't want to be in it, if they do not even trying to be in it. So that's why the first step is the community. So you're gathering that people who really like your idea, who really like the conception, and really want to figure it out and be in it. And these people will participate every hour event. Like we have multiple people who say like, yeah, I'll be at every Zone 37 event, no matter where it will be
Yeah, there
in the
has been people
country.
that have said like, yeah,
Those people actually forming this atmosphere by themselves for all new players who coming into it, who watching their reels in Instagram, etc. So it's more about the community than us just as a event providers in the vacuum, right?
Yeah, it's
That's my
interesting.
answer.
It reminds me a lot, again, coming back to, Dungeons and Dragons, which is my experience.
Yeah,
But I remember very vividly at the point that I realized that it's not you playing against the dungeon master or whatever. It's you are actually all coming together to collaboratively tell a story, the story of your character, the story of your faction, the story of your whatever. And so similarly, it sounds like that's the kind of agency you're giving back to your player base ultimately. And it sounds like they're I mean, what you were just saying, like creating media for you guys for like the radio, etc. Like obviously not everyone, right? People will engage at different levels, but you have players who care enough about it, and you've created a world that they actually can care about. Like there's enough meat on the bone, so to speak, right? That they can dig into it and start thinking about, okay, well, what is my motivation and what exists in this world and what doesn't, or what have you, right?
exactly.
yeah, yeah. We definitely wanted
Exactly.
to add layers, so many layers to the point where it gives players something to do between the events. It gives them a story to follow. It gives them something to like wait for, whether it's a smaller event that we host in a different part on the West Coast or anywhere in the world, or a big event with a massive storyline and tons of like prep and all kinds of thought went into it. Yeah, so we just want to fully immerse the player as much as we can, as much as like it's feasibly possible for us to do so.
One of the things that I remember when I was talking to Matt about the event is that he said it was like creepy, right? There were parts that were like creepy, spooky, which is very much in line what you were talking about, like Fallout and like Stalker and all this kind of stuff. Games that like if I looked at my heart rate while playing them, I can see that it's going up and up and up, right? Because I'm a big baby too, but that's another conversation. But like how do you as an organizer create creepiness for players? Again, understanding that they know they're not going to die, right?
Yeah, a lot of that had to do with the chapter one, the field that we played on. It was at an abandoned paper mill in Northern California, and this place is creepy. Uh,
Itself, yeah.
yeah, it is like it's one of my favorite places to play. But there is really creepy areas in there. So much like I know that I'm safe in there, but I've been in areas where I'm like, I need to get out of here. I'm scared right now. I have no reason to be scared, and I'm actually scared, so I need to leave. Uh, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
just really creepy. It's everything. It's everything. It's the atmosphere, right? It's the shadows, it's the light, it's the sounds, it's what you step in, it's what you have to step over. It's everything, right? Everything adds to it. And while that first AO that chapter 1 was at, it's you're never going to get creepier than that. That's if you're trying to host a post-apocalyptic event, like that's your bread and butter.
yeah,
But
but
we are going to do our best with chapter 2 onward to replicate the creepiness, to kind of take what we learned from chapter 1 about what worked and like do everything we can to pull the creepy from that chapter into the next chapter and so on and so forth.
yeah, there are several big parts of this um, creepy atmosphere that we building, and the first part is we always have to make sure that the size of the EO is big enough for that amount of players we going to bring there, so we can create this loneliness for every player. They should not see like a crowds running around them, shooting each other. It's breaking the atmosphere. They should feel like I'm freaking alone here. I see nobody. I looted like I don't know like few artifacts. They rattling in my can like a freaking like Chris. I'm like they're like a Christmas tree, and somebody can kill me, and I will lose all of this. And they're like a 20 or 30 minutes walk to my base or the trader or the closest trader. So I have to get there somehow. And it's a night right now, or the early morning, or the day, doesn't really matter.
And there's phantoms.
Yeah,
And there's
plus all other dangers. Like, what if the emission will happen and I'm out of nowhere, there's no cover, and I will die, right? What if, not what if, but sometimes we just use the speakers with some weird sounds that spread out the field to make this kind of just a noise and like creepy sounds, and you walk past them like in the middle
yeah,
of nowhere, and you hear the screams or laugh or something like that.
Hmm.
It's kind of piss you off, right?
Yeah, or scare you, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
it is. We try
Or
to
scare you.
utilize light. Like that's always like the like safety and like immersion, right? Like safety is always our
Yeah,
number one.
yeah,
If they're safe, how how unsafe can we make this feel?
hmm
That's kind of like
yeah,
if as long as they're safe, how unsafe can we make this feel? And that's kind of like how I've been going for it as far as like props and stuff. Um, we've been really focusing on light, sound, you know, as feeling as much as possible.
yeah. And if you will go like by the road, you can be ambushed, and you know that, right?
hmm
So Nick said right, like we trying to make them feel unsafe as much as we can to make them unsafe at the field.
So one thing that's very common in narrative is sort of like the buildup of tension, 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 and then like some sort of like release of tension, right? Because you can't keep like base. I mean, I'm thinking about myself presumably, but like you can't keep building tension for me all day and still have me continue to just build that stress and tension up and up and up and up and just do that for 40 hours and be like, okay, see you later. Right. So what do you have sort of baked in, again, no spoilers, right? But like what do you have baked in your thinking for the narrative to sort of release some of that tension with your players so that they can, I think about like games like Fallout, for example, where you do have that creepiness, but there's also like humor, right? Or sarcasm or like just japes just in general that sort of break that apart for you. So you're like, okay, I just came down. That was something, and then I can go back in, sort of refreshed. What, if anything, like what do you do with that?
Um, yeah, so we have like us as admins, right? We kind of operate each faction, And so each of us is able to kind of like put our own spin on how that faction runs. Like, right? So when you're doing that, you're going to get varied experiences from all the players. Like this Titan faction might have not had the same military experience as the Rubicon faction. You know, their quests are different. Their commander is different. They had different access, different intel. They might have had access to more artifacts or loot boxes, which gave them, you know, kind of a like a plus, right? So it kind of just depends on how many people you have contributing to this thing, like this varied experience. And I would say, as far as like goals go, we have end game goals for every event that may or may not be reached, but those end game goals are, you know, slightly easy to achieve. So the chances of players doing them, you know, are more likely than not. So there is kind of like a climax, if you will, or like, you know, something that there's something to look forward to that will happen inevitably. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I would just like to add that each faction have their own kind of hub, like safe area, where people can release this tension, like rest, because once you reach the trader and let's say sold your stuff or whatever you did there, you can just relax,
Okay.
right? Sit,
We
sit
do
next to
have
the fire
central.
or like talk to people, listen some music, eat, you know, like just chat around like with people. So that's how you can release your tension from being in the zone. You was there, now you're here at the base, you relaxing, you like recharging, and now the next mission you're going there again.
So I'm curious, just sort of randomly, like what was from your perspectives? Maybe we'll start with Nick and then Alex, you can share yours. What was the funniest thing that happened in chapter one?
Chapter 1. Funny?
The church.
The church was probably the funniest, or I guess the most prolific thing that happened during chapter 1. One of our volunteers approached us and said, "Hey, some of the guys have a good idea. We want to start a church." And they described the idea to us, and I don't want to give too much away unless you're, you know, like unless you're gonna like check out the website or, you know, whatever. But there's a church involved in our events that was started by players. That's run by players. We have nothing to do with it, as far as
It's
how
kind of
it's.
like a secta, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of just like a miniature kind of faction that you don't have to have allegiance to if you don't want to. But it's something fun for the players to do. They came to us and said, "Can we do this?" And we, you know, I actually wasn't a part of it. I was super busy with the UGF stuff. But I think Alex or whoever said, "Yeah, go ahead and do it," and people loved it, and it put a whole new crease into the event, right? That made it go this whole different way. And it was unexpected, and people loved it. And we, as event coordinators, just want to see more of that, right? Like
Yeah.
well, as long as it works, do it, right?
Yeah,
And that's
because
all.
they kind of formed this church, um, and at the night they running with candles and
Yeah,
trying to recruit people from different factions to their church to pray phantoms, etc. That was
yeah.
really fun. That's
That don't
when,
like taxes. I think that's their thing. They don't.
yeah, but
Uh,
that's where people actually role playing as a characters, you know, like
Mhm.
they act as a character, not as a player.
and they
That
took
was
it
really
far,
fun.
man. Like they have commandments. It's a whole. Where's my thing at, man? It's a whole thing. Like, oh, here it is, right here. Thou, this is one of them. Thou shalt hate taxes, but thou shalt file them correctly to maintain operational secrecy.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's like, it's deep, man. This people,
Yeah.
the players love this stuff, and we just love to see it. We love to see how they take our ideas and they're like, you know what? I'm going to take that to 100.
Are there any big decisions that happened during chapter 1 that changed the outcome for you guys as the organizers, where you're like, you thought it was gonna go a particular way and sort of now, this cult or church, excuse me, aside, that sort of veered you off. You're like, "Okay, now this decision is really cool, but we need to think about what we're going to do now.
I think there was a lot of things
Yeah.
happened and didn't happen that we expected or did not expect during chapter one, that we had to just really quick adapt, right, and make it make sense, not just for us but for the players' sake, for everybody to have a good cohesive time. um, so yes, that did happen. I mean, I can't really go into too many specifics, but we learned real quick that players should have a general access to everything, right? Like all players should have general access to like all basic things that we're doing, whether it be loot or uh, raffle tickets or access to the trader, any of these things, right? Like general things need to be accessible by all players. And that's something, we had made a decision during the planning. It didn't pan out the way we thought it did during the event. And it happened to the UGF specifically. I had to very quickly adapt and make it palatable for the players to continue them having fun, because we didn't have enough players on the UGF squad to kind of make it what we thought it was gonna be, right? And then because we were just getting raided and hammered all night, all day, because we were a fairly small team, it didn't really give our players a chance to go out and do things, right? So I had to adapt and figure out ways for them to do the same things as other players without getting killed doing so. So like that's like one adaptable thing that we had to do. Just speaking of all adaptable things, but I think we handled it fairly
Yeah,
well.
almost every core mechanic was changed or upgraded one way or another after this event, because we gathering feedback, and we made these adjustments to make it more balanced for every player, for every faction, no matter where you are, and no matter what kind of balance at that moment during this specific chapter in forces right now. So it's always kind of mitigated this unbalanced maybe situations. Sometimes it could happen and will happen all anyway.
Feedback is incredibly important, especially for
Yeah.
us as kind of like in the beginning stages of event coordinating. We need that, right? Like we need to know what works and we need you to tell us, right? Like it's not something that we can always see from our perspective. We actually need to know how you guys feel, how you guys react to certain things, what things you like, what things you don't. There's been multiple things that have been implemented in the manifesto that have been specifically from players. Like players said, hey, you guys should do this, and we've said, you know what, good idea, and now we do it.
Yeah.
So
And vice versa, like you were saying, like there may be rules that never really came up this time. And then next time they come up, you might realize that there's an improvement that's required there. And so you just go ahead and do it. And I think a lot of that comes from the approach that you guys seem to take, which is that you care about this. Like it's coming from a place of this is the event that we want to create so that people have the best time possible. Well, if that's gonna be your approach, you kind of have to be responsive, but if you care about the product, then you always will be anyway, right? Because you're like, I care about this. I want to be I want it to be the best that it can be. Of course, if there's something that doesn't work, we're going to take the steps necessary to make sure that it works as best as possible.
Yeah, but we are trying not to mix too much.
Yeah,
We are not $100 to be pretty for everyone, right? We are not trying to be for everyone.
yeah, for sure.
That's a very important part, because yeah, we're getting a lot of different feedback, but obviously we're not implementing everything,
Yeah,
because again, we are not for everyone, and we trying to
some people
stick
want
to
that.
some vibe and atmosphere and the vision we have. Okay. So
Yeah,
yeah.
some people want the purely combat experience. Like they bought an airsoft gun, they want to shoot their airsoft gun. But for some people, they just want to have an airsoft pistol on their hip while they cuss somebody out from across the street.
yeah,
That's all they really want to do. And so we leave room for that, right? Like if you want to come and be purely combat, you can, but there's like some caveats to that. Join a military faction and ask your commander, hey, can I just go be a little gremlin? And he
Yeah.
might say yes. depending on the stance that he wants to take, right? If he wants, his team to be aggressive that event, then yeah, go be a gremlin. Um, but I would say if it just ranges. Like you can come to our event and do essentially whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
And Alex, I sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So and we, but we always set a frame. If you familiar with our manifesto document, so literally the second page has a few very important phrases right there to set this frame for every player who will try to explore what Zone 37 is, so they can read it. This is not a Milsim event. This is not a Speedsoft event. This is not your regular weekend game. This is not a
Mhm.
KD competition. This is not a place to hurt people, obviously. And that's what very important. This is not a place for drama.
Mhm.
So we setting this frame right away. If you disagree with any of this phrase, please don't read further. It's not for you.
Yeah.
We don't want to really see that guy at the event because he, first of all, he will not get experience he wants to get from the event,
He
and
will
he
not.
will ruin others' experience because of that.
Yeah. No, I take your point, and it's very similar in a way. We held a very big Milsim event here. It was the very first time we had done an event like that last year, and people said to me, they were like, "Oh well, the AO was too big. It was like 500 acres. It needed to be smaller, and it was too long." And I was like, "Well, thank you, but I guess this is just not the kind of event for you because it was long and big on purpose, right?"
Exactly. Yeah.
And so like to your point, like I think there's a space for people who are like, okay, well, I'm not sure to experience it. And we did have people come out to our event who experienced it and they said, I'm glad that I did it, but I never want to do that again. Great. Excellent.
That's excellent.
It's too bad you didn't have a good time, but I'm really glad you experienced it, and that's it. And so in the similar way, like I can see people coming to you and be like, oh, there needs to be more like, force on force. It's like you're in the wrong place. Like this is not the place for that, right? So I can totally get that. My question though is, now when you think about where you want to go with Zone 37, when you're thinking about the future, like future chapters, etc., obviously in addition to the world changing and adapting to everything that's happened, there's also the scalability, right? Like we talked about, you want to have more players, you want to make it bigger, etc. What does that look like for you in terms of not just scaling but also not diluting the experience for the players who are there by doing sort of what you were talking about before, being like, oh, I'm supposed to be alone but I see another 30 people there. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
how far you wanna go now? Like, how far you wanna go now? Like
Yeah. Like
five
how, like
years?
you're talking 5, 10 years. Like I think at some point it was our collective dream to have a 5-day event. That 1,000 people plus. Like that's kind of like where it's at. And at that point, it would just be finding the AO, right? And it wouldn't be incredibly difficult to find. Like, we've, our next event is on 1,400 acres. So, the way I kind of look at it is an acre per person. Like if you can fit one person per acre, 300 people, 300 acres, 1,000 people, 1,000 acres, it's going to give them a sense of isolation in any case. We would just have to scale it up. And there's land everywhere, not specifically in California, but there is places to do this. There are property owners that are receptive to the idea of this. It's just coming to them in the correct way. Like I can tell you, I do this almost every single day. I cold call people that are landowners or property owners that have buildings or something. And 80% of the time I get shot down. 10% of the time they say I'll call you back and never do, and 10% of the time it's the conversation goes further, right?
Yeah.
uh,
Well, it only takes one, right? So
it's a tough it's a tough thing to try to find new places to play airsoft.
so how
um
do you grow that player base thinking about the 1 acre per person without also running out of space? Do you know what I mean? Like, because there's the onus, I guess, as event organizers to, well, we need to get tickets to make money to be able to continue doing this, right? So how do you, are you finding places that are big enough to support that, or are you finding that you're having to like limit your ticket sales because you want to provide that good experience? And like, is that part of your thinking about, you know what, we're not going to go past this threshold because of the spaces we have?
So yeah, this is a more business question.
Yeah, for sure.
As Nick said, yeah, the kind of final goal is to have like 1,000 people event, week long, maybe, maybe not, but ideally week long, once a year, and the rest chapters like bit smaller than this, like one big per year. More, that will feels more like a festival, even, I, you know, not
Hmm.
just a regular airsoft game, but the game where people building their camps, bringing their stands, building these cities and camps around the field, and leaving just there like a week at their character. You know, like
That's the dream.
that's
Yeah,
the
for sure.
dream.
We're years away from that. But
Yeah,
like
that's
that
the dream. But
super cool, right?
from the bigger business perspective, uh, we are totally fine not going beyond 1,000 people, right? Our goal is not to be like bigger and bigger and bigger every year. No, we will reach some kind of certain amount of people, probably 1,000, depend on the AO, and we'll stop there. Yeah, we will hard stop selling ticket, and to be profitable, we will just adjust the price of this ticket first. Plus, right now we are working on the kind of side project calling Rift events. It's a bit shorter event, slightly different pacing, but it's also kind of very immersive and very role playing thing, but more like if you ever play extraction shooters, you will get the kind of idea right away. So it's more like extraction shooter like event, 24-hour long. It's gonna twice like 2 days, literally, like technically 2 days, but the one day and one night gameplay.
Mhm.
So 24 hours, right? Uh, and we're gonna have more than 1 or 2 events per year, these small ones, to kind of feed the company with money to let it live and develop.
Mhm.
And this is only one way how we can do it. We also have the vault on the website where you can purchase merch. Currently, you can purchase it only from the in-game kind of currency, not for real money. But in the future, why not? Maybe we have something to sell for real world money, again, to feed the company um, with money to develop this world.
Yeah. Bigger AOs cost big money. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so there are a million ways to how we can grow the business without crowding AO with more people.
Yeah, because
and
that's
without charging without charging players,
Like,
upwards of $2, $3, $500
yeah, yeah, yeah,
for some of these places.
yeah.
235. I thought you were gonna say thousands, right?
No, no,
Like
no.
it's yeah,
No,
and
well,
you
it
know that
depends. Actually, it depends. Nobody knows what will happen in the future, right?
yeah,
If
for sure.
we will reach the place where we will actually have a week-long event with so many things going on, so many props,
Yeah, the
people
tickets might be
involved,
that expensive. Yeah,
that we have to pay kind of salary and contracts and pay for this AO, et cetera, et cetera. This event itself will cost like thousands of dollars itself. So we have to somehow get that
Yeah.
money, right? And I can say it could be even higher than 3 or even 4 or even $500 for the week-long event. It's kind of pretty reasonable because some events in the US charging like 300 plus for the 4-hour events, 40 hours events,
Hmm.
and it's totally okay for those people.
Yeah.
So if you're
Absolutely. And
getting
I
like
mean,
a 5-day experience, why not to pay 500 for that?
and that's like I look at it's not the same thing, but I look at
But
like
again, it's all
ultra.
theory right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, not
for
there.
sure.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Not even
I
close.
guess where I was gonna say is like I look at other like hobbies. Like one of my hobbies is like ultra distance running, right? And you look at races that are 200-mile races. They offer payment plans for the registration for those events because they're like $2,000, $2,500, right? People are paying that much money to physically run for that long, which is insanity. But that's another conversation.
We
But
actually have
right,
payment plans right
right,
now.
like
Yeah.
right? Like, so I think it's, like there, like you said, can't know what the future will hold, right? But as players sort of and the zone grows, it's good to know, I think, for players, especially who have experienced it, to know that one core value for you is always going to be that, listen, we want to make sure that we provide that same experience of, loneliness and immersion in this
That's absolutely.
in this environment, and that's never going to change, right? Even as we grow and as we expand and the story changes and more cults develop, perhaps
Yeah. And
that
games
part
and
is going
all
to
of it.
remain the same, true to the core of Zone 37. So as a final sort of word for you guys, I guess my question would be, so to anybody who's listening to this who could feasibly attend this event, so if they're, if it's financially viable for them to attend chapter 2, what's your pitch?
Oh man.
If they're not convinced by now, but like,
You, you're never going to go to an event where the event coordinators are so hell bent on your happiness and how much of a good time you are having, and that do the utmost to provide you with like the atmosphere, the light, the sound, everything that brings your mind, everything that takes your mind away from real life, which is why we're like playing airsoft, right? We're immersing ourselves in this whole other thing. You're never going to have that with the field play games, with the 40-hour milsim events. Like, we are offering a completely different product here, and we are allowing you to come in and be your own character, to play your own video game the way you want to play it. And so that would be what I would say, is that like we're good. It's good for all ages, boys, girls, everybody.
Yeah. I would quote one of our player as a final words, who played 15 years, like have 15 years of experience, and he said that was the best experience I ever had in my life from airsoft events. That's literally what he said after the chapter 1.
Yeah.
That my
And
word.
he's not the only one that kind of provided feedback similar to that. Like,
Yeah,
other
there was
people
multiple kind of
yeah.
feedback like this. I just quoting one.
Well, seeing how passionate you guys are about Zone 37 and the product that you're creating, the experience, more importantly, that you're creating for your players, I am not surprised to hear that people felt that way. I think there's so much space in airsoft. We've talked about this on the podcast a lot in the past, but there's so much space in airsoft to create different experiences for players to interact and live different. You talk about you're playing airsoft to escape reality, so why is it always just force on force
Yeah.
area capture? Like, why
Yeah.
isn't it a crazy Fallout, scary Zone 37 LARP? Why is it, like, it could be anything, right? It
It
doesn't
could,
have to be so formulaic all the time. And so we love to see and hear stories about like companies like yours and other groups around the world who do different things, who approach airsoft differently to provide that experience for players, right? That sort of takes us away, because like nobody wants, like, if you're leaving your weekend, your job for the weekend of airsoft, you don't want to think about normal stuff, right? And
yeah,
what
not at all.
what
That's true.
better way than to be scared shitless for 40 hours, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
you know um I would really love to have the experience to join you guys for an event at some point. That's something that would definitely be on my bucket list. Certainly not this.
Anytime you want to come out,
Anytime we will provide you a free ticket.
we'll
Yeah,
give you
I
a ticket.
will. Yeah, we'll certainly be in touch about that. I don't know. There's some coordination that would have to happen to my wife with my wife, because I would never go across the entire North American continent without her. So we'd figure something out. But yeah,
That's not an excuse, because this time we will
no,
have
no,
a
no. That's not what I'm
photographer
saying.
from England.
But yeah,
Oh,
there
yeah,
is
yeah,
a
yeah.
photographer crossing the
So
pond.
the whole country is that's not that far, man.
Yeah, no, it's you're not right. You're not wrong about that. Yeah. But Alex, Nick, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to us about Zone 37. It's just what a phenomenal experience, guys. And if you're listening to this and you're interested in attending Zone 37, they've got their Discord. We've got Matt on our Discord who's attended, who can give you his point of view if you want somebody's point of view about it, other than these guys who are the best informed people you could possibly ask for. And like you guys said, you're super accessible if people want to get at you and talk to you about some of the stuff that
Yeah,
they're thinking
always.
about.
Yeah.
Right?
Incredibly accessible. Yeah.
So, guys, thank you so much for being on. Thanks for taking the time. And that's all we've got for you this week, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.